Have you heard of the Ronald Reed story? The janitor who passed away in 2014 with $8 million in savings? Yes, you heard that correctly. Janitor, $8 million. Additionally, he did not inherit any money or win the lottery. Simply put, he has consistently saved throughout his life while allowing compounding magic to do its work. The lesson is that your financial behavior often matters more than your intelligence. Even if you don't work on Wall Street or have a Harvard degree, you can become wealthy by simply acting morally. According to Morgan Housel, making money is not a precise science. It's a soft skill where what you know doesn't matter as much as how you act. Spend the next 10 to 15 minutes watching this video and you just might succeed in developing your investing soft skill. Here's a list of the top 5 takeaways from Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money. This is today's thinker helping you achieve financial freedom through investing in class. First key lesson, be prepared to pay. Consider that you want a nice new watch. You visit the store to look at the selection. You really want to do something that will make your friends happy and the gorgeous woman you're dating. Your options are as follows. Either purchase the watch or burglarize it and flee. Since you already completed your cardio exercise, I'm going to guess that you'd pick option number 1 regardless of your physical capabilities. You would pull out your card and swipe it, acting morally. The important thing is that you are aware that purchasing a new watch has a cost. The same is true of investing, it has a cost as well. This represents the cost or fee for long-term success in the stock market with high returns. If you lack the willpower to preserve when your net worth drops by say 20% in a single week, given that the quarterly earnings of 2 of your major holdings fell short of analysts' expectations, do not panic sell and try to buy the exact bottom, as studies continue to illustrate that time in the market beats timing the market. Let's say you could already see Netflix's promising future 10 years ago. You made a sizable stock purchase using your entire net worth. Consequently, you would be quite wealthy right now. But could you really afford to pay for this trip? During this time, Netflix has experienced numerous severe declines. Would you have remained seated in the boat in 2011 when Netflix experienced massive customer losses? And in the months that followed, the stock price dropped by 80% from its peak. Your portfolio's performance would be appalling. What would you say to your partner and children? Could you stand in front of them knowing that you might have just jeopardized their future? Would you still believe that it is a good idea to almost exclusively watch Netflix? Of course, this is an extreme case. However, even if your investment strategy is less extreme than going all in on Netflix, nevertheless, you'll have to pay for the volatility. Consider purchasing an S&P 500 index fund in 1980. Your investment portfolio would still have to endure roughly 13 years of decline from its peak, and after 8 months, it had decreased by 50%. Hard to do that. A great thing, investing in the stock market makes it possible to build wealth unlike few other methods. It doesn't come for free, so don't try to fool yourself. Volatility will affect all investors and you must consider it to be the cost of having a better future. Second main point in the book, never enough. Capitalism excels at 2 things in particular, creating wealth and stirring up jealousy. The desire to outperform your peers, neighbors, and friends can inspire you to keep up the effort it takes to truly make it. Of course, being inspired to work harder and more productively is also important, but it can also make us feel inadequate because of social comparison. Let's examine some stats. To be amongst the top 1% of Americans with the highest incomes, you need to make around $500,000 annually. This is the salary of a highly skilled physician. Let's call him Sam. Sam would be regarded as wealthy by almost any standard. He can afford to drive posh cars, take lengthy vacations in far-off places, perhaps hire someone to complete the work he considers to be boring. Sam feels great about his life and the financial success he has had. That is until he bought a house in the Hamptons to use as a vacation home and realized Jeff, his next-door neighbor, is a member of the top 1% of 1%. He is the CEO of a sizable publicly traded company and his yearly salary is an astounding $10 million. You'd think Jeff would at least be content with his financial success, but alas, the person was Michael Jordan's childhood best friend, and this 1% of the 1% of the 1% basketball player is one of the all-time greats. In addition, compared to Michael's estimated $2 billion wealth, Jeff's salary suddenly seems like chump change. So, what happens next? Does it end here? Well, no, it doesn't, because Jeff Bezos occasionally appears at Michael's attendance at celebrity-themed parties, Bezos belongs to the top 1% of the top 1% of the top 1%, and in 2020 he increased his net worth by about $75 billion, bringing it to about $200 billion. A bigger fish is always out there. The kind of envy that has resulted from these kinds of comparisons has led many people to make stupid decisions throughout history. To climb a higher pyramid, some people have heavily leveraged their portfolios just to die by suicide after losing everything. Many people have abandoned their families, and as a result, their partners abandoned them, cheated on them, or did both. It's likely that you will have experienced financial freedom at some point that the typical Joe can only imagine, but eventually you will have to decide that enough is enough. Lesson number 3. Crazy is subjective. At first glance, it appears that many people act irrationally in relation to their money. Some waste it on ludicrously expensive items. Some people keep it under their mattresses. However, it's important to keep in mind that everyone has had a different upbringing, diverse education, diverse life experiences, and diverse parents. All of this results in various viewpoints and values. What makes no sense to you might make perfect sense to me. In the book, Morgan uses the example of lottery tickets. The US households with the lowest incomes spend more than $400 annually on the lottery. This is 4 times the highest income group's average. Incorporate this with the knowledge that over a third of Americans cannot find $400 to cover a last-minute emergency. Do they buy lottery tickets with the emergency fund? What a crazy idea, huh? However, as individuals, we do not share the same perspective. Try to understand it from their standpoint. They have little room for savings because they live paycheck to paycheck. They frequently lack education and a smooth career path. A nice vacation or a new car are not within their means, and they are unable to send their kids to college without incurring enormous debt. Their method of buying into the dream that many of us already live involves purchasing a lottery ticket. They purchase more lottery tickets than we do because of this. Maybe not so crazy after all. So, how does this improve your ability to invest? For starters, by recognizing that we are unique, we become less inclined to mimic an investment strategy or portfolio which is contrary to our own objectives. For instance, compared to a billionaire, our risk profile might be higher since we place a greater emphasis on the getting rich part and less about the staying rich. The billionaire's portfolio may not be the best fit for your objectives. Recognizing differences can also make it easier for us to reject investment opportunities that fall outside of our area of expertise. Consider GameStop as an example. I took no part in this drama as it's not my expertise. However, others felt the need to execute on the opportunity and were rewarded favorably. Recognizing the viewpoints of others, or at least that there are various lenses through which to view the world, will enable you to comprehend our society more fully and direct you towards your own path. Lesson number 4. Peekaboo. What did World War II, the Great Depression, and the financial crisis have in common? All of them had an impact on how our society developed. They significantly affected the financial markets, and it was virtually impossible to predict them. One of my favorite authors, Nassim Taleb, would call these occurrences black swans. According to the definition of a black swan, it's an anomaly. Nothing that has happened in the past can logically suggest that the event might still happen. It has a significant impact. After the fact, it can be explained. Human nature leads us to believe that we ought to have been able to predict it from the beginning. Consider the year 1987 on Black Monday. How do you think you would have responded if the market had lost almost a fourth of its value in a single day? Would you have been amongst those who exclaimed, "Sell, sell"? Or would you have survived the blizzard, maybe adding more chips that you've kept on the sideline? An intriguing fact is this. 20 years ago, if you had invested in the S&P 500 index, however, you had missed the 4 days with the best stock market performance, instead of a 291% return, you'd get a 164% payout. That represents a sizable difference. The lesson here is that it is more beneficial to be prepared, both emotionally and monetarily, rather than hoping you can act quickly enough in the event of a disaster you cannot predict. Stop hearing macro projections. The issues that the investment community will be extremely afraid of in the future are the events that are inherently unlikely to be predicted. And finally, we have the 5th lesson, the seduction of pessimism. If I were to list all the reasons why the market will continue to crash this year, they would include the massive US government debt, increase in inflation causing the federal fund rate to continue to rise, and an increase in unemployment in 2023. You would probably be curious and possibly come away with a very pessimistic assessment of where the market cycle is right now. If I were to give you reasons why things are likely to get better moving forward, demonstrating the increasing life expectancy, how the cost of renewable energy is falling, or the rapid increase in computing power, most likely you would simply shrug your shoulders and proceed without hesitation. Everyone is aware that the pessimist sounds incredibly intelligent, and in contrast, the optimist appears naive. Setbacks frequently happen overnight, but progress rarely does. Because tragedies and failures occur over much shorter time frames, it's much simpler to weave a compelling and convincing tale around it, and as a result, it draws more attention. To write a future-oriented narrative that is upbeat, we need to consider longer time frames. This frequently becomes less dramatic and more hazy. Knowing that a pessimist might pique your interest more and less so by a positive person can possibly aid in your future efforts to become less asymmetrical towards it. So, in conclusion of this astounding read, we know that without experiencing the cost of volatility, you won't be able to become wealthy in the stock market. 2. The worst of the 7 deadly sins is envy. Never compromise what you have in need for something you don't. Different viewpoints lead to different actions being reasonable or rational. Instead of attempting to predict disasters, mentally and financially prepare yourself so that you can survive them, and exercise caution when taking investment advice. 5. Recognizing that optimism appeals less to your survival instincts than does pessimism. That's all for us today, but not from Morgan Housel. Look into the book, it's truly wonderful. Goodbye now.